And today we're talking about the SPringfield Armory XD-e. This was the only viable single stack, double action, single action. You had ambi controls, safety. They could also serve as a decocker, so you could carry it in double action or single action if you wanted. The double action, more clear. The double action trigger pull was heavy but consistent with a break all the way at the end, and the single action decent, but if you sent one off to Langdon Tactical LTT and had them redo it, not only did they bob the hammer to make things a little easier for concealment, since this is a very thin pistol, but you ended up with a very improved action that rolls very smoothly through, a bit lighter, and the single action still a little bit of mush, but fairly predictable. What I found significant about this was the fact that it was the only single stack DASA with a decocker out there on the market. Springfield discontinued this pistol, and so far Croatia hasn't come up with a micro compact version of it. You'd think, since we know HS Product has the capability, I mean they made the Hellcat, that they'd do a micro style magazine, or maybe make this pistol fit the Hellcat magazine so that we could have a micro compact DASA decocker. Why is that important? Well, for me anyways, I didn't realize the value of DASA and decockers until I had been through a lot of training and shooting for a while. Ironically, it wasn't until I got to the point where a single action or a striker fire type thing was something that I really felt was appropriate. About the time I got to that skill level, I also realized that this platform has some great validity. Shoot what I'm talking about, and that is, I mean, yes, you can carry it decocked and locked if you're really concerned, but having a longer, heavier double action effectively serves as your safety. So you can leave the mechanical safety off on a DASA firearm. It also means your first shot, which can be quick if you want it to be. You notice the gun didn't move there, didn't jerk. Part of that's the Langdon Tactical action job in here. Let's see if I can do it on a regular Springfield. Yeah, still doable. But the firearm is still usable and ready for defense. However, you've got plenty of time and resistance to prevent an accidental or negligent discharge in the event that, oh, let's say you're drawing your firearm to defend yourself, your adrenaline goes through the roof, you're in maybe a state of mild panic. Every round fired is a potential lawsuit. Even if you only fire one round and it only hits the most terrible bad guy in the world, you can still expect civil action to come from him, from his family, from a neighbor, from a witness. In today's sue-happy society, being the good guy doesn't always mean you're not going to be punished. So for me, the idea of a double action first shot is great because it allows just a little bit more time to consider, also a little more resistance to make sure that, granted, following the 4 firearm safety rules keeps you out of a lot of trouble, but let's say you're about to take the shot. It's something like a mall scenario where there's lots of people running around and someone bumps you running by in panic as you're taking aim and prepping the trigger, working through your shot on the bad guy. Having a double action gives you a little bit more chance to not accidentally or negligently discharge the firearm. Just a little bit of extra insurance, if you will. So I like DASAs. I think they're a great idea. Having the decocker was great because you wrap around, the firearm's ready, decock, and now you've got that double action, leaving the firearm ready, but safer than, let's say, if it were a single action. Having also a manual safety, of course, you could argue that it negates things. You could argue that you could Like, why not just do cocked and locked? Sure, you can. In fact, that's the way that I carried my ground power before I found a decocker model, and it's the way I've been carrying my Bull Armory, obviously, because it's a 1911 platform, is cocked and locked, but that's after a lot of training, a lot of experience, as well as learning to control my environment. You know, obviously we can't prevent all bad things from happening, but avoiding certain places and at certain times, etc., to reduce my risk of ever needing to draw my firearm. I hope I don't ever have to, and I hope none of you ever have to draw a firearm, but there are good merits to DASA. Unfortunately, it seems the market trend has swung the other way, and everyone is chasing that striker fire, one trigger pull, simple to learn, easier to feel like you're good with it. And I think that aspect, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I don't mean this to irritate or insult anyone, but I really think a big part of the striker fire, one type of trigger pull popularity is that fact that it's a lot easier to learn and a lot easier to feel like you're good at. Whether or not your tactics are there, whether or not your mentality for a gunfight is there, it's easier to feel prepped. Almost a false sense of security, I'd argue, with a striker fired gun versus having something DASA with multiple trigger modes. That's a good thing in that more people are willing to be armed, more people are getting into firearms. I think it's also potentially a bad thing in that people are potentially falsely confident out there. Love to hear your thoughts on that. I'd be curious to hear from you guys if you'd want to see a micro in DASA. That's what we were all kind of hoping the Smith & Wesson CSX would be. They didn't do that. They got a lot of things a little weird on the CSX. We'll cover that in another video. But episode 18 is the Springfield XD-e, a gun that was discontinued. Maybe it'll come back. Maybe we'll see new versions. Who knows? I'd be curious to see it. I discovered this a little late in the single stack 9 game. I don't know if it was released late when single stack 9s were all the rage. They're not necessarily outdated these days. The micros have kind of replaced them, but it's still tough to get as slim as one of these. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.